Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for joining the privacy talk. I'm so delighted to have Mr. Tom from California today. He's a very exclusive tech entrepreneur and privacy regulators as well this time. So, Mr. Tom, thank you for joining today.
Well, thank you for having me on.
That's very nice. So, first of all, I'd like to speak out his profile. Tom is a Silicon Valley-based author, policy advisor, entrepreneur, and a cybersecurity executive. Tom is the author of Containing Big Tech, How to Protect the Civil Rights, Economy, and Democracy, an award-winning book and exports a core precedent and timely and essential reading. Tom's book was a bestseller and top new release in the multiple Amazon categories. Tom has served as a volunteer technology policy advisor for political campaigns, legislators, and civil society groups. His advocacy work includes leading the campaign marketing effort in 2020 to pass the California proposition in 24, and advising and contributing to the passage of the state privacy law in 2023, such as the California SB 362 and the Texas SB 2105. In 2024, Tom collaborated with advocacy groups and the legislative leaders in California SB 942. For his pro bono advisory work, Tom received commendations in 2024 from California State Senate and the Texas State Senate. Tom was the founder and the CEO of Certified and renamed Deliania in 2022, a leading cybersecurity cloud provider that amassed over 2,000 enterprise customers, including over 60% of Fortune 50. For his leadership, Tom was named by Ernst & Young and finalist for Entrepreneur of the Year in Northern California. Tom has also angel invested in startups in the past, with angel investing in over 10 tech startups. In 2024, Tom was named an Identity 25 recipient by Okta for being one of the 4 top trailblazers in the field of digital identity. Tom holds a Bank of the Science degree in computer science and history from University of Michigan. So thank you for joining, Tom. It's a pleasure to be talking with you this time.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, brilliant. So let's jump into the agenda. As I talked about your profile, you have been a very exclusive work so far. So could you explain why you started to work in the tech startup field in Silicon Valley and invested in your career in cybersecurity and privacy?
Sure. So I grew up in Detroit, Michigan area, which was really the hub of the second industrial revolution, which brought mass production through electricity, assembly lines, et cetera. So I grew up with the automobile industry and a lot of manufacturing. But when I graduated from college, I wanted to go where the hub of the third industrial revolution was happening, which is in Silicon Valley. And I spent the first 30 years of my career as an entrepreneur in Silicon Valley. And through my time in Silicon Valley, I co-founded multiple technology companies and I created hundreds of jobs here in California. So really got to experience the whole tech revolution being based in Silicon Valley. And through the years, I gained a deep appreciation for privacy and cybersecurity, not just at the policy level, but also as someone that builds technology that needs to have privacy and cybersecurity in it. And after my last company was acquired in 2020, I worked full time as a volunteer on Proposition 24 here in California, which created this agency that I run, the California Privacy Protection Agency, or Cal Privacy. And when this opportunity came up to run this independent agency, I saw this as a great opportunity because I really think Cal Privacy will be on the forefront of regulating the fourth industrial revolution that's going to happen with AI and other technologies that will heavily consume our personal information as well. So that's kind of my career arc of going from Detroit to Silicon Valley, and from the second industrial revolution, the third industrial revolution, and now we're in the fourth industrial revolution with AI and the heavy usage of data.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Then you following of the new trend of the industry, which is very significant to create it of the based on the society. So I'm so curious that the like you work on the advocacy activity after the field of the tech. So what did you make for the policy advocacy and the privacy during the period of the creating the new rules?
Yeah, privacy is definitely one of my core passions. And I truly believe that strong, thoughtful privacy policies can make a real difference in people's everyday lives. As I mentioned before, I actually worked on a ballot initiative here in California, which was Prop 24, that enhanced the California Consumer Privacy Act. And I also had the opportunity to be an advisor for other key pieces of legislation, such as the California Delete Act, which is SB 362. SB is Senate Bill 362. It's the first and only type of its kind in terms of giving consumers a single click mechanism to have their data deleted from all these data brokers. I also worked on artificial intelligence bills. For example, I proposed and I worked with State Senator Josh Becker on SB 942, which is the United States' first ever AI transparency law to provide labeling as well. And then when I took this position here, I had the opportunity to work as executive director of Cal Privacy on AB 566. That's Assembly Bill 566, that requires browsers to add the global privacy control to send an opt-out preference signal. So yeah, very excited to have worked on legislation, not only as a citizen, but also now in my role as executive director here at Cal Privacy. And one thing is that I'm very proud of the fact that I've been able to work with multiple political parties. And I think it's kind of a universal desire of no matter where you are politically to have strong privacy laws. And obviously, California is really the leader here in the United States. But I also, prior to taking this position, I supported a bill in Texas, which is a very Republican state. California is very Democratic. So the key thing is that I really think that with the growth of our data economy and the heavy usage of our personal information, that more and more consumers want to take control over their personal information. And I really firmly believe that consumers should know what data is being collected about them. They should have the right to say no to the sell of that data, and that businesses should have obligations to ensure that that information is being used in a proper and legal manner. And so that's always been my passion, and that's why I've been working over the last 4 or 5 years on privacy in different capacities.
Yeah, quite interesting points. I'm very respect you working on this space just because the privacy is the always becoming the afterthoughts and the tech domination of the industry. But do you propose this kind of the advocacy activity that was should be followed from the Asia perspective as well? So, and you are now is working on the executive director of Call Privacy. And why did you decide to become top leaders of this agency? Just because it's a very important role in the Silicon Valley. So could you tell us a bit of the decisions about your current roles?
No, thank you for asking. Yes, I mean, Cal Privacy is the United States' only independent agency dedicated to privacy. And what we have in California is the ability to influence other states as well as federal legislation. People call it the California effect. California was the first state to have a data breach law. California was the first state to have a comprehensive privacy law. California is the first state to have this deletion capability for data brokers. So we continuously lead when it comes to protecting consumers and their privacy. And so when this opportunity came up, I felt that it was tied definitely with my passions of privacy and cybersecurity. Obviously, it's an agency with people, and I've managed people as CEO of a cybersecurity company. So I felt very comfortable that I could run an organization and make sure that there's alignment and we're working together as a team. And I'm so grateful that there's so many smart, hardworking people, that work here at Cal Privacy. But the other thing that really interested me was that in the United States, we have a system of notice and consent, right? And by default, we're an opt out. And the problem is that in today's digital economy, if you want to participate, you kind of have to accept the terms. You got to say yes to the privacy notice. And it becomes incredibly difficult for consumers to exercise their privacy rights because they have to go to every business and make that request. And what I find is that privacy, while you have rights, like right to know, right to say no to the sale, right to correct, right to delete, it's really hard for an average person to exercise those privacy rights at scale across all the businesses they interact with. And so a few years ago, I wrote an article called Let's Make Privacy Easy. That was an article in this journal called Tech Policy Press, where I said that, look, we really, in an opt-out world, we need to give tools and allow consumers to be able to exercise their privacy in an easy, frictionless manner, because otherwise, exercising your privacy rights is a never-ending set of chores, as Professor Daniel Solov refers to our current, model as well. So very much focused on, like, for example, the Delete Act for third-party data to enable deletion at scale. Where I mentioned AB 566 that required browsers to add the global privacy control so that you can send a signal. And then, of course, very concerned about dark patterns and other friction that businesses may put in place to stop consumers from exercising their privacy rights. So I took this opportunity to not only, lead it because I firmly believe in the mission of Cal Privacy, but I really want to affect change, and I really want to make it easier for Californians to exercise their privacy rights. So those were some of the reasons that I took this position, and I'm super excited to be here. I've been here for 1 year, and we've as a team, we have accomplished a lot.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I'm just checking a lot of the updates from your tech team. Then that was very amazing to work in the privacy space since they've been assigned at this role. So let me change the bit topics about the transition. For your book, you mentioned about the very important notice, and especially for the first year introduction, it's industry revolutions and probably in California, since the established the California Privacy Act, the CCPA, which is the coming a lot of the new movement in the privacy space. So then my next question is, what's essentially the change in California in these years since you've started to work to protect the civil rights? what impact in your state? So could you tell us about your experiences?
Sure. I mean, California, is the main state for many of the largest technology companies in the world. And the technology companies, many of them made a business decision to have a model in which the bulk of their revenue comes from advertising. And so in some sense, if you look at companies like Meta and Google, over 80-90% is advertising. And what they do is they try to collect as much information to have more personalized ads to make advertising more effective. So California being at the center of the tech revolution and tech being increasingly driven by advertising and the usage of personal information, I think people here in California became very much aware of maybe the downside, how that data could actually be weaponized. At the same time, in the United States, we've had some Supreme Court decisions, such as the overturning of Roe versus Wade for reproductive rights. And I think people became more conscious that, wait a minute, like the decisions I make about from a medical perspective could actually be illegal, right? That weren't illegal before. And then how would people know about my medical conditions, things of that nature as well? So what we've seen here in California is that in the early 1970s, that California put into its state constitution the right to privacy. California was the first state, as I mentioned before, to have a comprehensive data breach notification law, right? And then it took 15, 20 years later, finally, all the other states. California was the first to come out with a comprehensive law. Now, obviously, Europe had GDPR before that, but California at the state level. And then we're the first state with this delete request and opt-out platform, which is the accessible deletion mechanism that the Delete Act calls for as well. So and also take into account that California is probably the most diverse society in terms of multiple races, ethnicities, sexual orientation, et cetera. And there's just a great deal of concern that that information could be used to discriminate against people, that the personal information could, for example, set pricing based on, being surveilled, or people may not be able to get loans or jobs, et cetera. So there's all this concern that's out there. And that is why, for example, the voters in California voted overwhelmingly for this Proposition 24. This is the first and only time that privacy has been on the ballot in any state in the United States, and it got 9.3 million votes. That's more than 10 states in the United States, their entire population as well. So clearly, there is a connection between privacy rights and civil rights. People care about that. And there was a Supreme Court Justice, Louis Brandeis. He talked about how states can be the laboratories of democracy to experiment and innovate. And California has definitely been doing that with privacy, but California has also been doing that with automobile safety and emissions. California was one of the first states to have food safety laws. So we've always led, at least in the US, not saying that other countries may have not have had, laws before us, but really, it's, really, this is where things are happening. And now California is the fourth largest economy in the world. And so a lot of the stuff that we do can actually influence. And I should say that California went from the fifth largest economy to the fourth largest economy after the CCPA was enacted. So you can balance innovation with guardrails. And I think we've proven that you can have both incredible innovation from the technology sector, but you can give people rights to the usage of their information as well. And then the final thing I'll say, it's really important to us here in California that if a federal privacy law with Congress comes out, that it should be able to allow states like California to continue to innovate and not be preempted as well. And so that's an ongoing battle that's always happening, that industry doesn't want a state like California to lead. But California has historically led in this area.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting. The parts from the agent perspective, the combination of the tech and democracy may have the different approach, and especially in a country than Japan. But in California, it's always been a very innovative from our perspective, not just only for the creating the new tech space, but also the inventions of the new rules for the tech industry. So that's going to be very interesting parts. So my next question is about a little bit related to your agency, just because you invented a lot of like tools or technology to solve the problems of the privacy issues from the civil rights, and on your agency that you were providing of the privacy tools for the consumers and the users. So what do you expect for these tools to protect the civil rights? What are your expectation for these new inventions?
Absolutely. So one big concern that we have in the United States because of this notice and consent, our opt-out model, is that there's a very large ecosystem of what we call data brokers. Data brokers are businesses that we don't have a direct relationship with that collect and sell our personal information to anyone with a credit card, basically. And so we are their product. They don't sell products to us. They sell our information to other entities. And there has been growing concern in the United States that this data has led to downstream has led to identity theft and identity fraud because bad guys can buy the data from data brokers. There's significant concerns about large-scale data breaches of these huge digital dossiers that data brokers have on us. And so there's all these concerns that are out there. And then that manifested itself in SB 362, the California Delete Act being passed. And what the California Delete Act requires is a registry that data brokers have to register with the state, but it also required our agency, Cal Privacy, to build an accessible deletion mechanism that we call DROP, the Delete Request and Opt-out Platform. It went live on January 1st. Data brokers don't have to start deleting until this fall. But the idea is that a consumer here in California, you have to be a resident, you go, you verify your identity, you put some basic information like your email, your phone number, you do multi-factor authentication to verify that, and then you hit submit, and the data is stored in a secure manner. And then starting in August, the data brokers will take a look at the hashed information and hash their information and kind of see if there's any matching. And if there's a match, then they have to delete the information and then update the database to say we deleted this information as well. So the beautiful thing about the drop system is that it enables privacy at scale, because otherwise a consumer would have to go to all 500 plus data brokers and say, please delete my information. And then, you go back and forth making that privacy request. Say it takes 20 or 30 minutes per data broker to have that conversation go back and forth, et cetera. Well, 20 minutes times 500 is like 9-10 days. No one has that time to spend trying to contact all these data brokers. But instead, with the drop system, you spend 5-6 minutes, put your information, and then the data brokers have to delete it, do the deletion. So it makes privacy easy, and it enables it at scale. Now, that's for third-party data. The other key component that we've been very big proponents of is the global privacy control, or GPC. That is a browser, either part of the browser or an extension of the browser, that sends the signal to websites, do not sell or share my information. So that helps address first-party data, companies that you directly interact with as well. So we've definitely been huge proponents of GPC. And as I mentioned before, we sponsored Assembly Bill 566 in California that was signed by Governor Newsom last year, that requires browser vendors like Google with Chrome, Apple with Safari, Microsoft with Edge to add the GPC switch to their browsers as well. So those are some of the examples of the tools that we offer to enable privacy at scale. At the same time, at our website, privacy.ca.gov, we try to provide a lot of helpful tips to residents and consumers to help them navigate the choices that they have with respect to privacy. So it's really about trying to make it easier for people to exercise their privacy, given the nature of the privacy model we have of an opt-out model, a notice and consent model. Because the reality is that most people will click yes to the cookies, right? Because they want to access the website. And so this kind of brings some power back to consumers to be able to control how their information is being used, to delete it from third parties they don't have a direct relationship with, and to be able to tell businesses, okay, I'll go to your website, but just please don't sell or share my information.
Yeah, it's quite a comprehensive approach with using a tech for protecting the civil rights, just because it's a huge burdensome for the users in case of the accessing of the paperwork. There's some kind of this stuff, but it's a tech is helping them. Just a very uniqueness from the California and your agency. I'm quite so respectful to the approach. Mm-hmm. So my next question is also the quite important part of the protecting of the whistleblowers. That's the part of the claiming from the internal voice to protect the civil rights. So your agency is released the recent approach of the whistleblower protection bill, which may be supporting of the individual who wants to fight against of any breach of the civil rights. So what do you expect of this new bill? Then what's the intention to sponsor of the new individual initiative? So could you tell us about it?
Absolutely. So we are an independent agency here in California, and I report to a board, and we can take bill ideas to the board and they approve it. And then we go and we try to work with someone in the legislature that will take it. And obviously, trying to get any law passed is difficult. You have to go through one house, then you go through the next house, and if there's changes, then it has to go back and forth, and eventually a bill to be put into law needs to be signed by our governor. So it's not an easy process, and the vast majority of bills don't make it into law, right? But we feel very important about protecting whistleblowers. And so we put this forth as a bill proposal. And last year, we actually sponsored the AB 566, the privacy signal bill, and we've supported other bills that were signed into legislation as well. So this is just part of us trying to contribute and move forward legislation. And this particular bill is Assembly Bill 2021. It was introduced by California State Assembly member Chavo. And what it does is that the reality is that with large tech companies, that it's very difficult for a regulator from the outside to kind of understand what's going on, if there are violations occurring, et cetera. And oftentimes we see the fact that someone on the inside may say, hey, we're not following the law, we're not doing something. And so what this does, it allows an individual to come forward and say, hey, there's something, a compliance issue, there's a violation of the law, and if they come forward, that they should be given protections, not to be fired, and if they contribute to the case against the business, that they can participate in whatever percentage of the award that's available as well. So it's just a way for us to do better enforcement, especially because a lot of these large tech companies, it's very difficult to, something's probably bad's happening, but you can't really figure out why. And sometimes it takes someone on the inside to provide that. But yeah, this bill, every year, we support bills, we sponsor bills. And it's not easy getting a bill passed, but we've gotten some passed in the past, and and we've got not only this whistleblower bill, but we have another bill, the SB 923, the Expanding Privacy Rights Act, that we're also sponsoring. So we're hoping for the best, and we're just trying to just move the ball forward on privacy.
Yeah, that's very impressive. Yeah, through today's talk, I realize it's quite a very important to deliver the approach in California that was very remarks from my like the feelings through the conversation with Mr. Tom. So in the last three, I'd like to ask Mr. Tom to deliver any message to the listeners because you had a very unique experiences. You came up to the privacy space and that was very important for the civil society NGO who's working on this space. So could you say any message for them?
Well, first of all, I appreciate you having me on your podcast. I'm very honored. Number one. Number two is I appreciate your listeners, their interest in privacy. It is so important in today's digital economy where our information is fueling a lot of the artificial intelligence. It fuels the advertising industry, et cetera, that it's so important, as you mentioned before, to have privacy rights to ensure that we have civil rights as well. So I'm very grateful for you and your listeners for their strong interest in privacy and protecting consumers and giving them rights and making sure that they can exercise those rights as well. And so while California is leading the way on privacy rights here in the United States, we are often part of international organizations. So we're always learning. And so there is no doubt we can learn from what you people are doing in Japan, what the people in France are doing, in the UK, et cetera. So we feel we want to work with all people and try to get the best ideas and learn from each other. So we're very open to collaboration with other governmental agencies that focus on privacy. We are a member of the Global Privacy Assembly. We are a member of the APAC Privacy Consortium. And so we certainly welcome engaging with our peers and the overall privacy community as well, because we're all doing very important work here. And as you know, the reality is data collection doesn't stop at a border, right? And so it's important that we share best practices amongst each other, and with the end goal of helping protect the civil rights of our residents. So again, thank you so much to you and your listeners for being very pro-privacy. And we have a lot to learn, and we hope to continue to collaborate with others, not only in California, but people across the entire world that are privacy centric.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Tom, for giving us the very important message to be united, even the like in different regions, we can work together for the civil rights. So that was a very good remarks, and thank you for the having. That was a great interview.
Thank you very much.